Hello and welcome to Salone Talk here on SMTV, a program we hope will have an impact on the future of Sierra Leone. Now more than ever, I'm your host, Salu Kamara. You've been wondering, what's up? Who do we have for this week? It's Social Work Month, and across the country, Sierra Leone joins celebrating the Social Work Month. We are here to interview a lecturer, a policy analyst, and a writer, Paul Arsenio Conteh. Stay with us for more on this. Hello and welcome to SMTV. We are here with a social worker, policy analyst, and a writer. Over the years, he has been a very critic to past and present government. We're here to discuss with him as a social worker, how does it look like to be a social worker in Sierra Leone, and some of the things he has written, like letters to former president and the current one, to the ACC commissioner, and lots more. Hello and welcome to SME TV.
It's for love, man. The man called Salio.
Happy Social Work Month.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much. The Social Work Month is so important to us as social workers. It's like the month that brings us together all over the globe. And the month of March means so much to me, and I'm looking forward to the 19th, where we're having a symposium at the University of Sierra Leone. And on the 30th as well, we're having a national program inviting, I think, the Deputy Minister and others to grace that occasion, so I'm looking forward to it as well.
So tell me about your experience as a social worker in Sierra Leone. I understand you graduated sometime in 2015.
Yeah.
And so tell us about your experience as a social worker practicing it in Sierra Leone, lecturing at the University of Sierra Leone. What is your experience so far?
Well, social work is a practice-based profession and an academic discipline that promotes social change and development, social cohesion, and the empowerment and liberation of people. That's social work in a nutshell. It talks about issues around social justice, human rights, collective responsibility, and the respect for diversity. And yes, I was privileged to at least be schooled in a Western context, and I was opportunity to get back home and see how I can put on my ideas to action, So in a nutshell, that's social work, and that's my story. But in the Sierra Leone context, it's different. From an academic side, really, the profession started way back in the 90s, the early 90s. By then, the Mathematical College of Education was offering a minute program in social work, basically for people who are involved in the child protective services, as well as those who are involved in youth work and community development, But it was at a diploma level. But fast forward in 2011, the University of Sierra Leone College introduced a degree program in social work, together with the support of my former employers, actually, the Global Connection Partnership Network. And then they started to do social work at a degree level, you understand? And fast forward to date, we have Jalan University offering it at a graduate level, as well as UNIMAC developing theirs, and Mathematical slowly transitioning from diploma to degree level. That's from an academic standpoint. From a practice standpoint, really, social workers have been at the pivot when it comes to national development, especially around NGOs and social welfare systems. From after the war, we realized that several NGOs recruited the service of social workers who were pivotal in providing trauma counseling, relief supplies, skills development, all these various facets, And so, at present, one, there is a missing piece between academia and practice. There is not much in Sierra Leone when it comes to avenues. Like in other societies, there are always platforms where researchers, policy makers, social work practitioners, educators, and students always converge. But in Sierra Leone, we don't have such avenues except for a group called Social Workers Sierra Leone. Shout out to Asan Kuruma, who is intentional, even and agreeing to organizing activities for us to have dialogue. Number two, we don't have adequate legislatures. By that I mean, other societies, they have laws, policies, and programs that guide and reshape the profession. But in Sierra Leone, we don't have that. We don't have policies that are there that can really help in regulating the profession. Because for me, my dream is that before you become a practicing social worker in the future, you should be licensed to teach, to research, and to practice social work. If not, you should not be allowed to. That's what lawyers are doing. If you are not privileged to attend law school and graduate, you are never going to be called a lawyer. And so that's also my dream for social work. The third thing that's missing has to do with internship. Internship, strength, and efficiency is limited back home. You know, where you connect theory into practice, but here it's limited back home. So in as much as I'm excited that social work is the fastest growing academic discipline in Sierra Leone, but I'm also concerned that there is not much dialogue between researchers, policymakers, analysts, practitioners, students, and academics. Number two, there is just a big missing piece between theory and practice. And the third thing has to do with internships that are not well organized. Then again, I'm talking about laws and regulations. So that's it.
So you talked about a very important point about social work being the fastest growing profession at the university.
Yeah.
This brings a question. You attended the Bello University.
Yeah, Bello, yeah, sure.
And you graduated there.
Yeah.
And could you remind yourself, you being a student at the Bello University and currently now lecturing at the University of Sierra Leone, look at the students here and compare yourself as a student 5, 6 or 7 years ago at Bello University. Let's talk about the facility available for students when you was a student at the Bello University and that of the people you now see, the students you now see at the University of Sierra.
Yeah.
Do they really have what it takes when it comes to the lecturer, when it comes to what they really need?
Well, that's the big challenge when it comes to social work education and holistically higher education in Sierra Leone. One, I was privileged to be trained with about 43 people in class. And even during those sessions, we were divided for certain modules. But here, my first year students at F.B.C College, so are 400. My second year students, above 300. My fourth year students, above 300. So generally, I'm dealing with about 1,000 students from first year to third year. And that brings the question about efficiency. And I believe if we want to enhance learning, especially social work, which is a technical profession, we need to cut down on our massive classroom sizes. Because in as much as I'm a big fan of the quantitative good that's going on in social work, but I've asked myself several times, that's my struggle, if really quality is reflective in quantity. The second thing has to do with research and writing. I was opportune to have the to be in an environment where I was really exposed to massive research, where I learned to write my fieldwork research, my academic research papers, my journals, my blogs. I was really trained. But here, not that much, because the entire atmosphere does make it conducive for students to cultivate the skills in research and writing. The second thing, which I spoke about earlier, has to do with internship. I believe if you want to go into a professional, there should always be a platform for the university to connect you into an avenue. For example, if you are interested in social justice, they should connect you to an NGO that has those ingredients. If you are passionate about community development, social entrepreneurship, feminism, there should always be a way for the university to connect you to really an avenue where you can really get some exposure into that realm, even before graduating from university, but those opportunities are limited. Also, we have issues around ethical standards. You know, we talking about professionalism. We have issues about the academic enhancement of the tutors as well. You know, so these are all possible challenges. But as I say, the profession is emerging, and we are growing quantitatively, but have question mark certain aspects of qualitative growth. And if we want the profession to really reach the height in Sierra Leone, holistically, higher education, we need to ensure qualitative growth is enhanced besides the policies and budgets that are sent into tertiary education.
Okay. Because really, you've talked about a very, very important point again about this quality, efficiency, and I have a couple of my friends who are attending F.B.C College, and most of them are really doing the social work. They are doing the social work. and that most of their concerns are that the university classes, they have huge amount of people, even more than the lecturer cannot even handle the amount of students in the classes. And sometimes they fight for chairs, and this is social work month. If you have the opportunity to send a message to either the president or the government of Sierra Leone to put modalities in place, what could you suggest for them to do to ensure that the capacity of students is really met with the efficiency and that of the quality of the education?
In one sentence, the students should be at the center of their learning. In as much as the president is doing a very good job in promoting human development as his paradigm for growth, but if his ideas are not transformed into sustainable actions by those who serve as the gatekeepers of these institutions, those who make the policies, who draft the laws, who admit the students, then we are going to result back to zero. And so my message to His Excellency the President and all those who are listening, please, 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 always strive to ensure the gatekeepers of these academic institutions, the ministries, the departments and agencies are on board with your ideas for sustainable growth and development. If they are not on board, you might feel like you are doing a very good job with increasing the budget quota, removing certain restrictions, but if the students are not actualizing the content, the experiences, the ideas in the classroom, it boils back to zero. And my massive concern is that I want social work to be a profession of social change and development. But my concern is this, is that the classroom structures, the classroom capacities, and the classroom atmosphere doesn't appear healthy for them to become the professionals you and I will want to be at the center of social entrepreneurship in Sierra Leone.
That's a very important point there. You talked about social work taking the social change in the country, and that reminds me of the students you have in your university, those you are lecturing. Now let us look at them in general. They are currently doing social work. But how many of them after university really could develop projects or effect this change in communities, considering the limited resources you have as lecturers in the University of Sierra Leone? How many of them are really getting the concept of what you are putting into them and ensure that when it is time for them to go to communities, to the country and do the social work, they really have what it takes?
I think that's an important question. One thing which I was up front, we've not done a research yet as to know exactly the experiences of the students that we produced, who've graduated previously from our program. But what I can say is that I still feel like we have so much work to do. I think some students are success stories, but there are also some students who I feel might be limited in their skill set, their knowledge and their experiences before they go into the wider world. You understand? What I'm saying is this, is that I don't feel that we need to deploy certain strategies. First of all, we need to publicize social work. I do feel it's not yet publicized. In as much as we brag about being the largest academic unit within the public university system, I agree and accept that. But I also feel mainstream Sierra Leone has not really embraced it as a profession to reckon with. And so those of us who are within that sphere, we have to be intentional in making and helping mainstream Sierra Leone to embrace this social work profession. At the same time, we also need to push the government to what? To help with legislatures that will improve the face of social work practice, academics and research in Sierra Leone. Once you have legislatures to help regulate the profession, then that's also a step towards growth. Then it's very easy for us to track the successes and the challenges of our products. Another thing has to do with employment facility. Make no mistake, Sierra Leone, we are sitting on a time bomb. There is a huge unemployment gap in country. Most of the youths after university, they struggle to find jobs. Why? Because we don't have a thriving private sector. And that's a cause for concern. we are backing the employment on the government and the NGOs, which is not healthy because remember, the government creates jobs based on its own priorities, and most times these are taxpayers' monies. The second thing, NGOs are reliant on what? Donor-driven funds. So we need to have a thriving private sector. Once we have a private sector, then we can absorb social workers into mainstream. Once we do that, we can have all what it takes to track what they are doing, how they are doing it, when they are doing it, and why they are doing it within agencies, academic entities, research firms, government institutions, and the private sector.
Thank you very much. Now let us look at, you spoke about government, and the social work, I believe, is much more connected to government.
Yeah.
For the social work to be effective in any country,
Yeah.
the government has to play very, very pivotal role.
Yeah.
And as well the media. And it imposes a question of how connected is social work to both the media and the government in Sierra Leone compared to the country where you studied at the Baylor University. If you were to compare in America, in Texas, where you've lived,
Yeah.
compare the social work there connected to the government and to the media, how does it look like in Sierra Leone? Is it the same, or is there a gap, and why?
Yeah, but what I say is that my big criticism about the government of Sierra Leone, I don't want it to be limited just to child protection, because it spans beyond that. I was trained in a school where social policy and development, public policy were very big on the agenda, not even child protection. But sometimes it's limited to child protection in Sierra Leone. The good thing is that the political world has been showing up the profession. Anyway, I remembered when the former government were in power. I remember on one or two occasions we had Dr. Biden, who was the Minister of Social Welfare, in one of the programs for the month. I remembered this year we had a program wherein the President, Deputy Minister was around. To some extent, I do feel the political world is embracing the profession. We have people who have served in the previous government and the present government, who are social workers, and they're actively pushing that idea, The media has so much work to do, especially when it comes to the involvement of the technical minds. There are so many social justice issues going on. And one thing which I was up front, I wanted to shout out to Umar Fofana of the BBC. He's been that one person who always stretches his hands to our department whenever social issues emerge, for us to give a voice in those conversations. Because one area the media can stretch hands to the University of Sierra Leone, not just, beyond social work, is to be bringing the technical minds on board to speak about the issues in short interviews, at the podiums, in commentaries, to ask academics to write on issues that are pertaining to national growth and development. When we have economic issues, go to those who are in the department. Political issues, go to the same people in the department. Social issues, come to our department. And so, in as much as I want the media to do more, to be stretching hands to at least get the technical minds to give a voice in these conversations. Also, I want to encourage social workers who have technical knowledge in certain areas to not hesitate to jump on their keyboard, pen on an idea, publish it, post it, share it, blog about it, so that our people can learn from the knowledge and experience we have to offer based on issues of national discourse. So in a nutshell, yes, the media and the political world have glued themselves to social work, but at the same time, social workers have to ensure we magnet these groups of people to what we are doing. Because if we don't stretch our hands and bring them on board, they have all justification to say, after all, Manokori, Mr. Nokandi.
You talked about government, you talked about blogging, and I know you for a very, very, very strong but good critic to past and present government.
Yeah.
When you talked about the government, it reminds me of the former government. You've written a couple of letters when you were in the Baylor University, or maybe when you just graduated, and also when you came back to Sierra Leone. You've been writing letters, you've been addressing issues of national concern, and that's you've not only been writing them on social media. Some of your articles have been published on local newspapers. And so let us talk about the former government.
Yeah.
You wrote a letter with the title Agenda for Doomsday.
Yeah.
And that it asks a question: what's the legacy of former Ernest Omar under your letter? Because when we look at the opening letter, you show some appreciation to the president, looking at what he has done from 2007 to 2012, which led to people voting for him, for him to be president in 2012. And if I am going to read the beginning of your letter, he said, Mr. President, I was among the many Sierra Leoneans who cheered for you during the electioneering process of 2012. We are all excited to see this leader that had started the good work in 2007 usher us to greatness in his next dispensation. Your first development plan and agenda for change, to some extent, a success. This development plan spearheaded an improved energy sector, revamped national infrastructure, and introduced a free health care initiative. These were among the many reasons we are all excited to see you come into the State House for a second term. We had the notion you will continue from where you left off. Now let us talk about this post. I feel it's very, very much connected to the current government. Now let's think about the legacy he left. Let's talk about the free healthcare system and that some of the things you talked about, which really prompted the people to vote for him for a second term. How do you see his legacy?
I think,
is it still going on?
I think I want to identify issue. One, as a policy analyst. Number two, as a patriotic Sierra Leonean. And number three, as an advocate of social justice. Remember, social workers are bearers of social justice. What I'll say here is that we as social workers, we have the platform to speak up and with our people, especially when we are dissatisfied with systems of oppression and systems of negativity. And to some extent, when I look at the legacy of Ernest Omar as a leader, I think he's a very good man. I think he started off nicely. I think in 2007, he fulfilled his promises. Remember, his first development plan was called an agenda for change, which was really built around 5 key sectors: energy, infrastructure, health, education, and agriculture. Health and education, he grouped it under what we call human development. Understand? So all this talk about agenda for prosperity, agenda for change, it was really built around these 5 sectors, and most of the budget quota was allocated to these 5 sectors. And I don't feel really there was success when it comes to infrastructure, because we saw what happened with the expansion of the roads around the western area of the country. We saw the intent to water down the Regent axis. We saw the expansion of the roads. We saw the erectment of the Chinese hospital. We saw several infrastructural projects really being enhanced in his first dispensation. And number 2, energy. Freetown was the darkest city, make no mistake. And when he got into office, he really fulfilled a campaign promise to lead Freetown within a short period of time. And the leading of Freetown really transformed to other countries. We saw investors coming in, we saw an improvement in performances across different sectors. You know, when it comes to agriculture, I don't feel there was a bit of an improvement, especially from the policy side. There was so much intent with the smallholder commercialization project, the involvement of AFAD. All these are areas that we need to celebrate. Healthcare and education, they failed woefully. But the people of Sierra Leone thought it fit to still give him a second chance, because I do feel in this part of our own world, I still rate leaders at 40%, not 50%, 40%. For me, if you score 40% in Africa, for me, you've tried. And I do feel that Ernest Omar was within the range of 30 to 40% based on his first plan. But he completely transformed into a different leader in his second dispensation. How? Is that we saw duplication of public positions. You sack somebody today, tomorrow the person is an ambassador. You sack somebody today, tomorrow the person is a minister. Somebody will resign today, the next year the person has gone to a position. It shows what? An inconsistency in political leadership. Once you are gone, you are gone. Number two, we experienced a poor response to an Ebola outbreak as well as a mudslide. And I do feel, as the custodians of the land, our former landlord need to take full responsibility. And remember, the audit report on that entire response was dampening, and it painted a bad image of our country to the outside world. And besides that, the response itself was poor. We saw the disease expand and led to the demise of several of our soldiers. We also saw what happened with the entire Samsmana situation. We looked at what happened with the situation surrounding the mudslide and its response, the austerity issues. All these factors just exposed a system that was flawed. And I do feel, as an advocate of social justice, I need to bring out these issues so people can understand. Again, I'm also a public intellectual. If I don't write, it's not, I just want to sit down in the classroom and shout knowledge to students. Once in a while, I need to go on my keyboard, my Facebook Live, and at least help people understand the issues of the land. And one encouragement I want to leave to Sierra Leoneans, please, especially the working class and intellectuals, don't be lazy. Read government documents, the budget, the new direction manifesto, the national development plan. Read the documents, understand exactly what your government say they do, how they'll do it, and when they'll do it, then you are better placed to hold them responsible as a patriot and also as an intellectual. If you don't read, you have no clue. Your support will be blind based on party affiliation, political tribalism, and whatever the case may be. So for me, and it's by Koma Part 1, 2007 to 2013 was a good man, and the Koma Part 2 from 2012 to 2018 was a completely different person. And we saw what happened in the election last year. I don't feel most of his decisions led to the demise of the F.B.C. I don't feel that's going to happen.
Okay. So now, let's just talk about this new government.
Yeah.
If I could remember, you've written even more than 3 or 4 letters when President Julius Maadabe was sworn in as President of the Republic of Sierra Leone. And as part of the letter, you've congratulated him and wished him well. And also on New Year's Day, you had a letter written to him as well. And that, let us look at the letter you wrote sometimes in May 12, 2018, wherein you said elections, victory, transition, scenery, and manifesto complexity. My message to the new direction, master planner, President Julius Maadabe. In that letter, you looked at very, very important issues, and also you remind the president of the manifesto he made, or the campaign strategy he used, and that you ended up the letter sending a message to the president, which I want us to look at. You said, finally, I wish you well in your tenure as president, fountain of honor and commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Sierra Leone. I will be here to help the governance process through education, activism, and analytical write-ups on trending topics. I promise to wave my professional values into any discourse championed by my humble self. The components of integrity, credibility, objectivity, and impartiality are going to be paramount in my work. For now, I head back to the classroom to educate my students on social policy, good governance, and development.